Would you mind lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
States
of
of America
America.
and
and
to the
republic
flag
which
of
stands under
the
God,
nation,
under
under God,
Indivisible,
indivisible,
and
with liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice
for all.
Thank you. I can't wait until we can all be in one room and doing this together. I miss you guys. And I hear that Alameda County is in red. You guys went down from the purple to the red, so congratulations, all
Yeah.
you. That's awesome.
Hallelujah.
I know, huh?
Finally,
Great.
wonderful.
We're not there yet, but we're aspiring, to get to where you guys are. Can we do a roll call, please, of the membership?
Okay. Director Akinjo. Director Cantu. Director Hobart.
Here.
Director Hernandez, Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
Director Hudson.
Here.
Director Joe Brock. Director Kick.
She's going to be a couple of minutes late.
Okay. Director King Tingle.
Here,
Director McPartland.
Here.
Director Neram.
here,
Director Rickman. Director Stepper.
Here.
Chair Vargas.
Here.
Director Warner.
Here.
Director Zuba. Okay, you do have a quorum, Chair.
And I want to, Candice, let you know that Paula Quinto is just signing up, and I saw somebody else too. Yeah, did I miss somebody? No, we have somebody else just join us.
yeah, no, Keno just joined us.
Yeah. So, board members, today we have a packed agenda. Wow. Our looks like Michael is putting pedal to the metal and not stopping for us at all. So we better catch up. This agenda is full of items that will be a big step for our agency and the ability for this agency to be eligible to receive federal funds. It seems like momentum has picked up and we are moving forward full speed. As a chair, I promised you guys that I was gonna just do my best to be ready. And I need to change my heels for some running shoes to keep up with staff. We need to be ready for eligibility of federal funds, and that's what we're moving towards. I'm looking forward to the update of our executive director. He has a lot to talk about today and bring us up to speed. We have done a tremendous job in the last 3 short years, and we have created a huge amount of work. And brace yourself, because we are continuing pedal to the metal, full speed to the finish line. I'm hoping that in the next few years, we are celebrating hopefully a ribbon cutting opening. We'll have that train, soon started. So with that being said, I will open the meeting for public comment. Candice, do we have anybody that wishes to make comments on items not on the agenda?
Yes, we do. I'm going to bring him over. Please state your name. Hello, caller. You need to unmute. They may be having some technical difficulties. I'll give them a couple seconds.
Looks like they are trying to unmute themselves. Let's give them a couple more minutes. See if maybe they would like to type their question.
That's an option, yes, because we cannot hear you,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Would you mind, caller, stating your name and your question, please?
There we go. They're on the phone, so I've asked them to unmute on the phone. I think you need to press *6 to unmute yourself on phone, caller.
There you are. There you are. Can you hear us?
This is not working out. You'll have to type your question in the chat, or we have to move on. This is the only person we have.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you
Sorry.
now, Miss English. Go ahead.
Okay, it's been a while. Directors, Michael Tree, Bernice Tingle, Paul Enko, and many of you. And for the ones that don't know me that are new to the board, I've been attending the Ultimate Rail Authority Board for over 3 years before it became the Valley Link. And I've been supportive of the Valley Link for years and the project to alleviate the project in our county. But what I am opposed that what's going on, and I'd like to bring it to the attention of the board, is the conduct of your chair, Veronica Vargas. She's been misleading the community of Tracy. Recently, we just had an initiative, Measure Y, opposing the TOD in the city of Tracy by 18,000 votes. This information that was given to us during the election, and I believe Michael Tree, you attended one of those meetings where one of the council members said that if we do not have a TOD, that the Valley Link will not stop in Tracy. You did not make the comment, but there was another council member that did. I'd like to remind a lot of the mayors and city councils on here that Tracy is the second largest city in our county. When this was presented back to us in 2018, there's an organization called TICA, the Downtown Community Association. And that was back in April 2018 and again June 2018 to support the Valley Link. There was never talk about the TOD. If the board has a chance to look at those letters, we were supporting this. We have the infrastructure. Right now, downtown has 1,750 units. That means housing, apartments, low housing, senior housing, and apartments. We also have offices, restaurants, and business office and rentals downtown to support the Valley Link. We were told several times after the fact, this started in June 2009, July, oh my gosh, I just lost my notes. Back in 2019, who spearheaded the TOD? Not sure if many of the board are aware that Veronica Vargas has her own business, land entitlement, land development, land use, and more. We think, in my opinion, and also 500 residents of Tracy, that Veronica Vargas lost sight of the Valley Link. I will wrap it up.
Thank you.
I know, Veronica, you don't want people to know what's going on in Tracy, but I urge the mayors and council, there's billions and billions of dollars invested in this.
Okay. That's the only person we had with a hand up.
Is that it?
That's it. We have no one else with a hand up.
Okay. Well, all right. And I will address it. Actually, brief comment. The city of Tracy has a slow growth measure that it only allows less than 750 houses to be built per year. Those allocations are been given out for the next 20 something years. And yes, I was a support of a measure Y to allow residential construction to be built near the TOD. And most of you guys know that TOD and land uses are responsibility of the city, not of this board. However, we have ourselves policy when it comes to TOD, and maybe we can revisit those things. Anyways, thank you, Ms. English, for your call. I really appreciate you participating. And with that, we will move to consent item agenda.
I'll move the minutes from the prior meeting.
I'll second.
Perfect. Roll call.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
can-
can I move the minutes and the treasurer's report for January both?
Yes, you may. Is that second?
And I second.
Thank you. We'll do roll call, please.
Okay. Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
did Director Cantu come on? I don't think he did. Hobart,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kick,
Yes.
King Tingle,
Yes.
McPartland,
Aye.
Neeram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Here. And yes.
and yeah, okay.
I'm
Stepper,
having horrible computer problems.
Stepper, aye.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
and did we get Leo Zuber?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the executive director's report.
All right.
Mr. Tree.
Everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Sometimes my mic does funny things. Hey, well, good afternoon. I know everyone is certainly in a busy time, and it certainly has been busy for staff throughout the past month since we last met. I do have a couple of things on the executive director's report that would be good to cover with the board. So AB 758, as you'll recall, we were in the process of making some amendments to AB 758. And the bill that has been introduced, which provides those amendments, which is being co-authored by State Senator Eggman and Assembly Member Via Padua and Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Cahan and State Senator Frazier, is SB 548. And so that bill was introduced. It's being amended, its language is being amended briefly before it gets into committee, which will take place in mid-April. But just as a quick reminder, that bill basically eliminates language that implies a requirement for Valley Link to connect with BART and ACE in the Tri-Valley. So effectively, we're stating that we'd like that connection to occur in the most effective location rather than a Tri-Valley specific location. It also exempts the rail authority from specified provisions related to regulations by local agencies regarding building and zoning and related matters. And, this is an exemption that's provided to rail transit districts. And so what we're really doing in SB 548 is we're just clarifying that the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority has those exemptions as well. And so again, I'll keep you posted, hoping for letters of support as we draw closer. It'll be, as I said, mid-April before that gets into the Senate Transportation Committee. A couple of other items, the EIR, this is what we're working around the clock behind the scenes on. We've been working on the draft responses to the comments that we received during the comment period and also revisions to the EIR. And we're right on track with an expectation that we'll bring that to you at your May board meeting for consideration in certifying and also adopting the project. So I'm trying to get it earlier, trying to get it in April, but it doesn't look like that will happen. We want to make sure we take our time and get this right. And so we're right on track though for May. As you can see on the agenda in agenda items 6 through 9, we've been doing a lot of work in preparation for an application to become an FTA grantee. So this will be, this status would allow the rail authority to receive federal funds, to manage those federal funds, and to basically sign all of the documentations related to receiving the federal funds. And so that is the bulk of our agenda today. And so we've got a good team together to walk you through those documents. I also I want to make note that the Tri-Valley Transportation Council, I think Director Kick and Director Hobart both serve on that council, is doing a nexus study for developer fees for the future. And the Valley Link has an estimated $40 million of developer fees that are packaged into that nexus study. So we're watching really closely, and we're assisting staff to that Tri-Valley Transportation Council as they work through the nexus study. But certainly something to keep on your radar screen. There's a lot of transportation planning taking place. San Joaquin COG is updating their regional transportation plan. You're currently in that plan in the fiscally constrained section, which is where you want to be. And then also MTC over in the Bay Area will be finalizing their Plan Bay Area 2050 in the fall. So we're working with them and certainly keeping an eye as they get closer to taking to their commission that regional transportation plan. And then finally, the state, it will be updating soon their state rail plan. And so we've been starting to get engaged in committee work in regard to that state rail plan update. I do have 2 other quick items to cover with you in the executive director's report. We have submitted appropriation requests. You've been seeing a lot of action in Washington, D.C., and we've been working with the staff of Congressman Swalwell and Harder and McNerney to both submit and to move forward appropriation requests for Valley Link. So want to let you know we're on that. We're working on the action items for the advocacy plan that you approved at your last board meeting. And my expectation is that we'll have some items to talk about at your next board meeting in regard to the action plan in regard to advocacy. And then finally, agenda item number 10 and the closed session on your agenda. We don't need to have those agenda items today, so I think your chair will move right beyond them. But I do want to announce that Rick Rattray, who's been your program manager for the past year and really just a solid asset to the authority. I mean, he carried a super heavy workload and worked around the clock for you. He has retired from BART. I think his last day is the 19th. And of course, we had seconded his services from BART. And so with that retirement, he will be retiring as well from the Valley Link project. And I think he's got some fun plans ahead in regard to doing some part-time consulting. And so we'll continue to use him, I'm sure, as we move along in that consulting role. But in the meantime, I'll be working towards getting a full-time project manager on board, working with your legal counsel to find the best way to bring a program manager on board. I think I mentioned at the last board meeting, there's a couple of options there. certainly we could bring them on board as an employee of the Rail Authority. Also potentially some options with bringing rail employees on board as LAFTA employees, and LAFTA, as you know, is a managing agency for the project. So potentially some avenues there. But I think the key soundbite is that as we enter into the NEPA process and pick up the FTA as a partner agency with NEPA, they are pretty adamant that the top echelon or the top layers of the Valley Link administration are employees, and they're not considered consultants who are then managing consultants at various layers of the organization. So anyway, lots of work, I think, over the next several weeks in regard to bringing on board a new program manager. But I think above all, I just want to thank Rick and really have appreciated his round-the-clock work for Valley Link. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that there's lots of work going on by board members in regard to advocating for Valley Link, and some may want to mention some experiences they've been having, but that would conclude my report.
Thank you, Michael. I want to say that, can you tell us on SB 548, what is the best way for member agencies and members of Valley Link's board to provide support? What can we do?
So that's a good question. In working with staff members for the Senate Transportation Committee, they're hoping that maybe in the first week of April, they can receive letters of support from the member agencies and from business and other community advocacy groups towards SB 548. So I'll be working really closely with your staff, with the member agencies to have that take place. Maybe some well-placed phone calls as we get closer as well to committee members expressing support from board members. So I'll stay close to the board as we go through that process.
That will be super helpful. I'm glad to see that the progress on the EIR and most important near term on the agenda, this board will consider bringing and certifying the EIR. Is any chance to move the certification to April as opposed to May?
I think, well, May is certain. I think we're right on track with May. I think April would take a couple of things falling into place, but more than anything, there's continued work on data for the responses. And also a time period for each of the teams, whether it be ICF, your environmental team, or our legal team, to really work through the document closely. So, probably a slim chance of April, but a really good chance of May.
Okay, sounds good. And one last comment I want to share with the board that the City of Tracy and the new City Council has included Valley Link as one of their top priorities for the One Voice this year. And I'm hoping to continue moving the discussion forward in Washington, D.C. This year. We're preparing to meet with the FDA to see if we can get grants and for our project and as we enter into the NEPA process. So a lot to do, a lot to just be thankful and grateful and continue to move the project forward. I see several hands. I'm going to start with David, then Melissa, and then Karen. That's the order I saw him going up. So David Hudson, Director Hudson.
Michael, I almost jumped in when you said this. For clarification on this bill, State Senator Frazier?
Oh,
are you, I'm not being cute, are you saying Glazer and Frazier and they're both involved with this? Because Jim obviously is going to be much more interested in San Joaquin Rail and money going that way.
Yeah, you know what? A Glazer, it should be.
And we don't have Frazier involved with this at all? Because he was transportation for a long time.
Let me check. Let me get right back with you on that.
Okay, no problem. I mean, it's not like we're going anywhere. Just when you hit me with that, I'm going, oh, Steve, I can talk to him. I'm not going down to Jim telling him we're going after money. He's going after. That's like telling the fox that the henhouse doors open.
Yeah.
We'll move to Melissa, then Karen, and then John McFarland.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. I have been working, hand in hand with Innovation Tri-Valley in advocating for this project. So, it's great for as board members to be out there and be advocating for this project. And as you know, Tri-Valley is such a thriving area, and we're just a big hub. We have two great job, big job center areas, national lab, Livermore, Lawrence Livermore Lab, and we just have other headquarters for technology companies. And we look at about a $42 billion GDP. But I do have a question for Michael, is how are we doing with our advocacy efforts to help with the federal appropriations request? Michael.
On mute, no.
Hey, give me that question one more time, Director Hernandez. I was looking up, it is Glazier, by the way, Director Hudson. I was thinking of Fraser because I worked with him as the chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee, but it's Glazier that's co-author.
Good.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to know the advocacy efforts that are being put forward with the help of the federal appropriations request.
Yeah, so staff's getting a game plan together. I think it's really important that we get some representation in our advocacy efforts, both at the state and the federal level. So we'll likely have an RFP on the street, and we do have advocacy dollars in your budget to be able to work with. So I would expect that probably at your next board meeting, there'll be a lengthy discussion and consideration in regard to advocacy.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. Michael, I just wanted a clarification, having been through changes of personnel with Recycle Smart when I was on that committee, when you change from one city to another, to change from contractors with one city to employees with another city, for example. So I don't have an idea of how many we're talking about. How many do in, and it doesn't have to be answered right this moment, but I just don't have a concept of how many contractors we have versus employees and what kind of change we're looking at doing.
I think the short answer is, I think there's an expectation that the executive director, that the program manager, probably the project manager over civil work, these are the key positions where I think the FTA is very sensitive to consultants managing consultants. Thus far, we've had these folks in seconded roles where they weren't necessarily a consultant. They were technically employees of BART, but on loan to the rail authority full time. And so as we move forward, I think we're trying to preserve at least those key positions and keep them from being consultants. The remaining work on
sorry, Michael, so they would be employees of what, of Valley Link?
Yeah, in working with BART, it's not likely that we'll second additional employees from BART. They've really been in an effort to trim their staff given the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's likely that we'll bring on board folks that would either be considered an employee of the rail authority itself, or could be brought on through LAFTA as the managing agency for the authority. There's some issues there that legal counsel is working through, in particular in regard to CalPERS. So I think at the next meeting, we'll have a very good, robust discussion on that.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael.
Yep.
Director McFarland.
I'll just take off the microphone. Thank you. As we continue to do the work and look forward for staffing projects and goals and objectives, I need to end up taking a moment to look back at Rick Rattray and the contributions that he has made to BART and to Valley Link. He and I go back quite a ways. We were co-workers almost 20 years ago when I was an employee at BART, and he's been my friend and someone who I admire for the work that he's done and the contributions that he has made to Valley Link while he has been loaned to us have been absolutely substantial, not only for the work that he did himself, but also for the work that he did in rallying a group of professionals in order to work cohesively as a team. And while we will continue to work on, I think that his absence will be felt for me personally, as well as for the work that needs to be done. We will prevail and we'll still get the job done, but I would have liked to have done it with partnership with him. And I wish him well. And I hope that as when I was speaking to him yesterday, I found out that the only person that seems to be happy about what is happening with him stepping away with his retirement from BART is his wife, by virtue of the fact that she now has a husband that she gets to see instead of working 50 and 60-hour weeks. And so with that, Rick, congratulations on your retirement. And I hope that you go on an extended vacation that lasts for the rest of your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is anybody else? Any other comments? If not, we'll move to the next item, item number 6.
Okay. All right, so I'll take an intro to this agenda item. As has been mentioned, items 6 through 9 really are all about getting ready to be an FTA grantee. And so we're aggressively seeking federal funds. We're entering into the NEPA environmental process with FTA. And so really our legal team and David Katrowski and others have been working diligently behind the scenes to tee up these next several agenda items, which includes agenda item 9, which is basically what's coming to you in the next several meetings in regard to this process. And so really appreciative of David Katrowski and Marianne Payne and our consulting team and our legal team. I want to introduce David Katrowski to kind of take the agenda item from here, but I certainly, before I do that, want to give Michael Connor in a few minutes just to introduce the legal team that has gone behind the preparation of these documents for you that are in a lot of cases tight with language that's required by the FTA, and certainly his team will know what kind of flexibility or not the board has as it looks at the next couple of agenda items.
Thank you, Michael. Just one of the benefits you have by working with us is that our firm represents a lot of the transit operators in the Bay Area, other than BART and Muni, sometimes as general counsel like we do for you, but sometimes as special counsel. And in doing so, we've fortunately developed expertise in a number of the important areas because almost all transit agencies are recipients of federal funds, specifically funds through the Federal Transit Administration. So I'm very pleased to let you meet some more of our team because we have some great people. So to help present today, Jerry K. Phillips, who's in our labor section, is going to take you through the FTA drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, which her group works on for many of our transit clients. Also, Shana Van Hoften from partner in our government group. She's the #2 attorney for Samtrans and Caltrain. And she's really a regionally recognized expert with regard to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And she's going to be taking you through that, which has several important subcomponents. And then finally, Catherine Groves, who many of you should know, she's been working with the agency from the very beginning. She's going to give you a preview, coming events. Just if you don't get enough today, just wait. There's a number of other things. And again, these are all things that we need to do in order to make the agency ready to accept federal funds. And some may use the analogy of chicken and egg. I mean, it's a lot of these things. It's you don't really need them until you're a federal grantee, but you can't be a federal grantee until you have them in place. So We've been working closely with staff and working very hard, and David Petrowski, who's going to now take the lead and be your kind of MC through these items, has done a great job in putting together the effort. So look forward to hearing these presentations, and hopefully you'll take favorable action so we can move forward and qualify ourselves for some of that federal money that we hope is on the horizon. David?
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
All right, great, thank you. Hello, Chair Vargas and board directors. My name is David Katrowski, as mentioned. I'm the MC. My tuxedo's at the dry cleaner, so I'm sorry I'm not wearing it today, but I do want to walk you through each of the items that you're going to see before you, and then I'm going to bring you forward with the resolution before you. Candace, do you have the slide deck up for agenda item 6?
Just 1 second, I'm putting it up.
There we go.
Mhm.
Thank you. And we're on to item, sorry, not, this is item 6, second slide. Yeah, next slide. Great. All right, so what you see before you are some action items today. We have resolution 02-2021 under item number 6, 03-2021, which is the next agenda item number 7, which is a drug and alcohol policy, and the Title 6 program, which is a rather large agenda item. It's got 4 subparts to it, is resolution 04-2021. And as agenda item, as Michael said, and Michael Conran said, our attorney, agenda item number 9 is a sneak peek as to what's going to be on the horizon to continue to attain grantee status with the Federal Transit Authority, as well as US DOT, because there's other federal funds outside of the FTA that the authority can pursue. And then for next month, for April 14th, we're going to have approval of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program before you, plus some more additional information updates based on discussions with the FTA. All right, if we go to the next slide, particularly for this agenda item here in this resolution, the intent is to apply for and receive the federal funds, as well as to meet certification and assurances and sign various agreements with the FTA. To become a grantee, we must comply with all of these numerous federal requirements. There's actually a guidance circular for which Olga Perez, our procurement policy director, has been very helpful in making us understand all the boxes we need to check as we go through here. And to the credit of the authority board itself, you all have already adopted the procurement policy, which is FTA compliant. So we're already, even before this resolution number here, we've already started to work on some of these items and get them in the checkbox under the completion section here. In addition, there are legal, technical, and financial requirements, as I was mentioned in the slide below, that need to be satisfied, and which, as Michael Conran was saying, it's a chicken and egg situation. They just want to make sure that we have basically met various requirements, so when we enter into operations, we will be ready to go without a hitch. And so if we go to the next slide, this is the action before you. We're seeking the approval of resolution 02-2021 that would authorize the executive director to file applications for grant funds and other opportunities with the FTA and US DOT. Also the authority to execute certifications, assurances, excuse me, and grant agreements, and take other necessary actions to secure and manage these federal assistance programs. This is a cost neutral action and will allow the staff to pursue federal funding, especially, I think I think it was Director Hernandez brought up the possibility of going after federal appropriations. And I've actually heard there's some possibility of the Biden administration putting forward a stimulus program, which would include transportation infrastructure. So we want to be ready for those funds, and thus put before you resolution R02-201 for your consideration. I'll turn it over to Michael Tree and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. I don't have any further comments other than that is the consideration under this agenda. Item number 6 is to approve the resolution.
I see that Director Hudson has his hand up. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I promise I won't be asking questions on every one of these folks, but Mike, I kind of brought this up. I don't know if it was our last meeting or something else you and I were involved with. Who are we talking to at Federal Transit? I mean, it used to be, I swear I knew Vincent Valdez better than I knew you, but he's now in Pennsylvania. I mean, are we just going through the normal thing, submit an application for a grant, hope we get it, and not doing any lobbying on our own? Or is there someone that we've been hooking up with? For example, I know Glowway Touring, if he's still with him, would come out every year for our mobility summit that we'd hold in San Ramon. Is there anyone like that we're kissing up to, I guess is the best terminology? Or are we just hoping like the rest of us?
Well, we've certainly been letting the FTA folks know about the project, and One Voice has been particularly helpful in that process. That's the advocacy from San Joaquin County. However, you know what, we've been, working on an appropriation request. Actually, we've got 3 of them in for the Valley Link project, and thus far, we don't have a lobby firm on board. So what we've been doing is we've been working with the cities to make sure their lobbyists know of the Valley Link project and are advocating for the project. Matter of fact, this evening I've got a call with Townsend to talk to their staff in regard to the Valley Link project, and they represent, I think, the Tri-Valley cities, so they were very interested. But more importantly, I think we've been working really closely with the congressmen. There's 3 congressmen in the project area, so we've been working with their staff members, their chief of staffs, and their transportation policy directors really closely to position those requests. So I think we have a ways to go. I think we need the advocacy piece on behalf of the rail authority itself, but those have been the channels that we've been working on thus far.
Is DeSaulnier, he reaches into this district, doesn't he? Or our Tri-Valley at all? So I just read something, I think that might not be transportation, but.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's fighting 500 people to get $15 sometimes, but.
Yeah, Congressman Harder sits in a very influential position on a budget appropriations committee. So he has been basically taking a lot of the lead with the appropriations requests. But we do have scheduled check-ins with DeSaulnier based on his leadership role in the committee that he's on, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
Thank you.
Yep.
Director Hernandez.
I just wanted to make a quick comment and just thank staff for doing the hard work and making sure that they're looking into any possibility of receiving federal funding. So I want to thank you.
Michael, Mike Conran here, you don't minimize the fact you've been meeting very regularly with FTA regional staff, including the regional administrator, Ray Tellis, who's been guiding us in terms of what they'd like to see to qualify us. And they've given us some very clear direction and had some very clear opinions as to how we should proceed, which we're working with. So we're definitely in touch with FTA staff. It's just been more at the regional level.
Yeah.
Good job, Michael. And Director Warner, thank you for waiting so patiently.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to build on what Director Hudson was saying, is that what I've heard Director Hudson say multiple times is it's really important who we know. And I think we've got some transition going on in Washington. So it would be, I think, helpful to the extent we can, is to actually have a list of who's being contacted, specifically. I think that's what I've heard Director Hudson say. And so that as we in our separate channels are doing things, we kind of know who's being contacted. So to the extent you can put together a list of who in the administration we're dealing with and which of our lobbyists are doing it, under which auspices. Is it individual cities, agencies, or the combination of it? So I think that would be helpful, because what I'm hearing is that we know we're doing this and we think there are a lot of contacts going on, but at the moment it's a little vague as to how we can actually help. So Director Hudson, is that a good amplification of what you were saying?
I think you just nailed it with the last line in particular. It's a different ball game. I mean, it's like, I would go down an escalator and be able to talk to the guy that's ahead of the guys that are here in the region, in Vincent Valdez. I mean, everybody go back and see him, and we were bringing them out to speak. Now they're all different people. So you got to build that thing again, because everybody's going after money now. Sooner or later, we're going to run out of this stuff. But yeah,
well,
I think you've nailed it. We go back with different committees and we walk in and see the same people, and then we do the crossover and say, hey, Valley Link's really coming along. And instead it's like, who? I just got here 4 weeks ago. I mean, we all need to be working on the same page. That's what I'm really saying. And take every advantage of any DC trip, which has been offered for 2 years now. This is where the mayors can help.
Yeah, and I would also just specifically say I'm encouraged in the conversations I've had with Representative Swalwell. So he's helping here too. But to the extent we can all be coordinated and directed through Michael and everything, that would be very helpful.
Perfect.
Okay, I think we could use a motion on the resolution.
Veronica, you're muted.
Oh,
Yeah,
do we have
sorry.
any public comment?
Looks like we have
I have
two
no
other
one
hands
with
up at the
I
moment.
have no one with a hand up from the public, but I have two panelists. Melissa, I think they went already, actually. Yeah.
There you go. Director Hudson, there you go. All righty. If I will entertain a motion, please.
I would be happy to move the motion, make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by, who made the motion?
Albert.
Albert, and second by Leo Zubrio. Can we have a roll call, please?
What is the motion?
To approve agenda item 6, considering the authorization of filling the application with the US DOT, FTA, and execution of this certification assurance grant agreements currently required to receive federal financial assistance.
Yes, that's my motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All ayes? Any nays?
Akinjo?
We have to do a roll call, unfortunately.
right.
Akinjo? You're muted, but
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. We can get count to Hobbit,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kick.
She's coming.
Yes. Sorry.
King Tingle,
Yes.
McPartland,
Aye.
Naram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
and Zuba.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Candace.
Mhm.
Moving to agenda item number 7. Michael?
So, yeah, I'd like to introduce Jerry K. Phillips, and unless David has something to mention, Jerry's going to present the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy.
All yours, Jerry.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon to everyone. I'm going to share my screen unless Candace, did you want to share it or should I? I'll go ahead and share mine actually.
Yes, you go ahead.
Okay. Put in slideshow mode. Okay, is everyone able to see it? I think it's on my second monitor. Are you all able to see it?
We can see it.
Yes.
Just
Yep.
do the slideshow.
It's not in slideshow yet, though.
Okay, hold on. It's on slideshow on my second monitor. See the problems of the new world. Hold on. How do I move this over? Let me figure that out. That's its own animal.
Go back to share screen.
You may have to stop sharing and then share the second screen.
Thank you. Okay, stop sharing. And then allow me to.
You should have two options.
Share screen 2. Okay. There we go. Is everyone?
Yes.
Great.
All right. Okay, so as David mentioned, as part of the operational readiness for getting ready for federal funds, one of those requirements is that you have a drug and alcohol-free workplace policy. So our labor and employment team worked closely with staff to draft a drug and alcohol-free workplace policy for Valley Link. So the requirements under the FTA to receive federal funding stipulate that the policy has to include 4 basic components. So you need a statement describing the employer's policy on prohibited drug and alcohol use, or prohibited drug use and alcohol misuse, I should say. You have to have an education and training program. You're required to have a testing program. And then finally, you have to have procedures in place when a covered employee has a verified positive drug and/or alcohol test result. So the staff considerations that we had in looking at this drug and alcohol-free workplace policy are, first and foremost, Valley Link currently does not have any safety-sensitive employees. And this is critical because the FTA's requirements for the drug and alcohol policy actually only apply to safety-sensitive employees, which are those defined as individuals who are working revenue service vehicles with a commercial driver's license, those who are operating non-revenue service vehicles, dispatchers who are controlling the dispatch and flow of those vehicles, and finally, individuals who are maintaining the equipment related to those vehicles. So right now, Valley Link doesn't have any safety-sensitive employees, but this policy is required to be in place before you're able to receive any FTA funds. So staff will make sure to include these drug and alcohol policy requirements in any contracts with consultants or contractors that are performing safety sensitive duties. And then there's also ongoing reporting and compliance requirements once employees start coming online. And those requirements include at least 60 minutes of training on the effects and consequences of prohibited drug use, and as well as a separate training that's required for supervisors. And that's a 1-hour training that they have to undergo as well on recognizing the physical, behavioral, and performance indicators of probable drug use. So that's not something you have to worry about today, but it's just something for you to be aware of that will be coming down the pipe as you start bringing on safety-sensitive employees, both what's required of them as well as for their supervisors. So the board action that we're requesting today is that the staff proposes that the board approve the resolution and adopt the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy, which should have been attached in your board packet. The policy is cost neutral. The policy is required to receive federal funding. And if approved, then staff will make sure that we provide written notice of this drug and alcohol-free policy to any covered employees or contractors as required by law once they come on board. So with that, I will open the floor to any questions that you might have.
I would like to move for approval.
I second.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's confirm that we have a motion by Director Marfalo and second by Director Tingle, and discussion. Yes, Paul.
Yes, Madam Chair. So I look at this program, there's no recourse for any employee. Is that the case? That is, you are caught with drugs or you violated the provision, you are fired.
Not necessarily. So, for example, one of the things that is required to be in place is that you have a referral to a substance abuse therapist or a substance abuse training program. And so it's not a one violation and you're done, depending on the severity of the violation. So for example, if you have a blood alcohol content of 0.02 to basically 0.04, that is not an automatic disciplinary action. It's actually an automatic referral to a substance abuse therapist. So that's built into the policy as it currently exists. And then as employees start coming on board, obviously you can massage and shape how you want the disciplinary action to look from there. But those are the basic requirements that we have under FTA guidelines.
Is that included in this package, this slide? I didn't see it.
Not in the slides, but the packet, the drug and alcohol policy itself, and I can find the specific section for you. And it discusses what to do once you have a positive test.
I mean, yeah, we can take that
Oh,
offline.
there we go. Section 13, just
Okay.
actions after a positive test. So if you refer to section 13, it'll go through all the required steps once someone does test positive, if someone tests positive.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Not, we have a vote on the floor. We'll call the question.
Kinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
Hobart,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kick,
Yes.
King Tingle,
Yes.
McPartland,
Aye.
Neeram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Zuba.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Moving right along. Agenda number 8, to approve and authorize submittal of a 2021 Title VI program. This is an action item as well.
Hello, Chair Vargas. It's David Petrosky again. There are 4 components to this Title VI program, for which I'm going to turn it over to Marianne from the Valley Link project management team and Shayna from our outside counsel. Marianne and Shayna, it's all yours.
All right, I think I will take it away unless Marianne wants to say anything to start us off. Otherwise, I will turn periodically to Marianne for input where necessary. So hi, I'm Shayna Van Hoften. As Michael said, I'm a partner at Hanson Bridget, and I've been working with Title VI and civil rights law compliance for probably about 15 years. So I actually have worked on the LAVTA program, which provided many of the underpinnings from this program, as well as a lot of other programs in various agencies throughout California. So this is one of those lovely ones where we have bits and pieces of requirements that apply to all sorts of federally assisted grantees, as well as those that offer specifically transportation services. And then there are some requirements that only apply once you have actual transit service operations. So what we're going to do today is walk through some specific elements that all transit and other federal grantees are required to have, but we will not yet be going into anything related to specific transit services because we're just not there yet. So I'm going to share my screen. I only have one screen, so it shouldn't be too hard this time. All right. Are you able to see the slideshow? Yes, okay.
Yes.
All right. So what we're going to do today is walk through 4 separate agenda items. We have one slideshow for all 4. And those include the equity statement that you first addressed, I believe, at your last meeting. 2 new plans that are included in a Title VI program. And then specifically, the last item is the one that has the resolution associated with it for adoption and authorization to file with the FTA, your full Title VI program. So I'll provide a little bit more background on Title VI, but for starters, let's talk about the equity statement. Title VI requires you to have a notice to the public of your steps that you will take to ensure that the rights of people are carried forth without any regard to race, ethnicity, or national origin. And Title VI is specifically limited to those 3 criteria. However, we are able in your notice to the public to have an expanded set of bases of discrimination that we are calling out as prohibited for this agency. And that is indeed what we are proposing here. Based on your feedback, the updated equity statement includes the 3 Title VI categories of race, ethnicity, and national origin. Oops, but also additionally, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability. So those are allowed to be in Title VI notices and make them beyond Title VI, but not required to. So some agencies very strictly limit their notices, but it is very appropriate where desired to expand your notice to these additional categories. So with a Title VI notice or any discrimination notice, in addition to your general statement that you do not allow discrimination, you also have to provide that you specifically comply with Title VI, that anyone who has a complaint, discrimination-based complaint, can file that complaint with you to have it investigated. And for any Title VI discrimination, members of the public who feel they've been discriminated against can also go straight to the FTA with their complaint. So in the equity statement before you for consideration, we've included all of those elements, and that will be part 8A of your suggested action today. I'm happy to take any questions, go through it in more detail. Otherwise, we can move on to 8B, but I don't want to skip past this item without providing a chance for you to make sure that this is what you actually are hoping to have us do. Yes.
I only have a comment. I'm very proud of all the changes and the commitment to social equity. So good job. And it looks like it's a bunch of hands. I just saw him. I'm going to start with Director Warner, then Director Kick, and Director Marfarglin. Go ahead, Director Warner.
Okay, thank you. In my professional career, I've been through the various documents like this and the titles, 6, etc. This looks, even though it's expanded, it looks like it may still be a truncated list of categories. Are there any that you've considered that you decided not to put in the list?
So there's typically a broader list that we use in procurements and in other statements such as genetic testing results and a bunch of other ideas. And those notices tend to get very, very long, and they appear in all of our contracts. But with the Title VI notice, once you have a facility where you start to post notices, you have to actually translate this and post this. For example, on your transit vehicles. So we do in contracts and other places have much longer lists, and those lists change every year or so as the state changes its discrimination rules. And if we tried to keep up with that state discrimination list, we would have to tear notices off of vehicles every year and out of transit facilities and repost it. So we typically do use a slightly truncated list because we do have very specific posting requirements for this notice.
Can you clarify what elements of this statement exceeds the minimum requirements?
Sure. So in Title VI, we have race, color, and national origin. That's it. Everything after that is outside of Title VI. So age is outside of Title VI. Sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity are outside of Title VI, and disability is outside of Title VI.
Wonderful.
And
Perfect.
yeah, I'm trying to move this over so I can see it better, but every time I do, it changes screens.
Director Warner, if you're done, I will move to Director Kick.
Well, yeah, you just the other one, you know, there's the like veteran status and things that I've seen in other places. So there are some other categories, I think, that are always going to be there that don't add too much, but are typical. So that's all. I was just suggesting that we look at that list. I understand the need to keep it short for all this translation stuff, but I'm just thinking there might be a potential to add a couple of more of the more classic categories.
So I will recommend that you not get too expansive, just because of the fact that you do have to translate and post this particular notice. But you should absolutely know that in all different sorts of places where you can list out the various types of discrimination, such as in contracts, you are never limited to what's in this statement. This statement is just the bare minimum for when you post a notice. But for example, in contracts and procurement, we do have updated lists periodically that include all the different elements, both federal and state protections are provided to. But it does become kind of a long.
No, I understand, but this is, as you said, this is a little bit beyond the bare minimum. So you've added a few categories, and I was just wondering if there are a couple more classic ones, but I'll let it go at this point.
Director Kick.
I was just going to say, I appreciate that you took a second look at this, and we're getting a little bit more than what we added. If we added things like religion and documentation status and veterans, I mean, it could go on and on and on. I just think it's important that we get this out there, we get this done, and that we, you know, maybe there's how can we, you know, maybe on the website have something that's a little bit more expansive, just so we could potentially get all of that information out there, understanding that Title VI is a very specific rule we have to follow, posting requirements, etc. But how can we, in our other publicity, make it very clear that this doesn't mean that you're going to be discriminated based on your religion when you get on the train. It's just not listed on the train because of whatever reason.
Perfect. Thank you, Director Kick. Director McFarland.
Director McPartland, you're on mute.
I'm going to have to piggyback on both what Bob and Brittany already suggested, and specifically in relationship to disabled veterans organizations, as well as WBEs and MBEs. And the issue here is that while you may end up having it in the nuts and bolts document as far as the execution is concerned, if you don't state it up front in your organizational goals, then in subsequent years and I guess attitudes within the community, it's very easy at the lower level to go ahead and strike it out. And so if you end up putting it in, and admittedly it's going to end up looking a little bit, I shouldn't say overwhelming, but drilling down to the specifics, it may look a little bit odd. The good point of that is that if subsequent generations want to end up excluding those kinds of populations, then they've got to take it out of that opening statement, that policy statement, and they've got to own it. So that's just what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Director Hudson.
Yeah, I lied. I am going to speak on all of them. But I was actually thinking exactly the same thing Director Warmer was thinking. But then I started focusing on disability and what Shana was saying. And I go, you know, the more things you add, it's like the less value you add to the whole statement. And I'm not sure if that's the way everybody feels about it. But I think you've captured what we're trying to do with an equity statement, and the disability component of it, I think brings a lot of the veteran issues in there. I can't believe it was like 8-9 years ago, I was starting to see veteran pop up in all of these same discrimination things. It's like, why were they left out? Then all of a sudden they were in everything. But if you bring this in and you start going for all the other things that are on there, I don't think it ever ends. I think you've really captured as much as you want to go on this thing. Maybe even one less or two less, but I wouldn't push expanding on this statement. It gets the point across.
One way talking. All righty. This is an action item, so we will need a motion in a second.
If you want to wait, we can take A through D all together.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, and I just, while you were talking, I did just pull up our current language that goes into contracts for the Equal Employment Opportunity List, which is the list you're talking about. And it includes, just for your reference, race, religion, color, sex, disability, national origin, or any other characteristic protected by state, federal, or local laws. And then it also includes race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. And then in another place, it includes others, and it is 2 pages now. So I promise you'll get all of those in at various points.
I wanted to reach out, Supervisor Harbert, you had your hand up. I don't know if you still have a question or it was answered.
I would just like to clarify where this would be seen by the general public. I guess this is a document and a statement of equity. You mentioned contracts. I'm assuming that riders will also see some sort of statement around non-discrimination. I'm all for continually reinforcing to our public and to anyone that does business with us that not only do we not discriminate, but that we do not tolerate hatred or discrimination or bullying or mistreatment of anyone at any time. And that should be understood as just general good-naturedness in our society, but it's not always. And unless we continually reinforce it, we continue to periodically see things happen that we don't like to see. And so I while for brevity's sake, in this instance, support the recommendation to not be expansive, I would like to see us be very vocal about how we do not tolerate discrimination of any kind or mistreatment of anybody at any kind at any time when those are appropriate occasions for us to do so. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor. I'm going to move to Director Kick, Aquincho, and Stepper. Director Kick.
Oh, I know that we can wait. I was just like thinking about moving this with an addition or condition that we maybe have a section of the website that's like our equity statement that's maybe a little bit more expansive. So when we get to the moving part, if we can add that, that would be great.
Duly noted. Director Aquincho.
Yes, ma'am. I was thinking, is there any way we can include, or is it possible, or is it ever done to include pay, minimum wage as part of the display?
Used to be that the FTA's Title VI guidance took low income into consideration, but that was removed from the most recent Title VI guidance because it was found that the FTA had gone in their regulatory actions beyond what the language of Title VI covers. So that was removed from the Title VI guidance, but that does not mean that it needs to be removed from your equity statement. So if that's something that you want to include, there are probably still Title VI statements out there that still include low income status. So you would not be alone in including that if you wanted to do so.
Well, I think it would be a good idea, regardless of when it is, what is eventually arrived upon. People love to see those things, so that it doesn't become an argumentative or union-based fight, long, prolonged fight. If it is stated up front, then you avoid all those things.
Thank you, Paul. Let's move to Director Stepper.
All right, so now I have 2 points. So I think the first one probably was addressed somewhat by Brittany Kick. Is there a way to, people have been talking about not minimizing the fact that we're not discriminating. And if you're going to post it, that it needs to be readable. I mean, if you ever read something on a medicine bottle that you ever take, you'll never be able to read it. So you don't want something that's minimized by the fact that you don't have the impact of the things you want. Is there a way to add something to the end of the one that we started with, for example, and say for a complete list, see our website, Can you take care of the other things without having everything have to be posted? So that's my first question, Shana. You're shaking your head, but that's not on.
Yes, you can. I'm looking at it to figure out the best way to accomplish what you're talking about. There's certainly things that we can do. So another thing to keep in mind is that as far as your employment policies go, you're going to be taking an EEO policy, I believe, at your next meeting. So a lot of this in terms of all of your employment, where you talk about who you hire and the fact that there's no discrimination in hiring, discipline, etc., that will be part of the policy you adopt next month. So that part is separate and will be covered. In terms of your interaction with the public, contracts are sort of held in their own place. And then once you're at the point where you're providing actual transit services, what I have seen some agencies do is beyond their discrimination statement, adopt sort of passenger codes of conduct. And in passenger codes of conduct, it's a separate freestanding document that's not like a half a page that's posted in your vehicle. We're really, this is intended to be sort of the shorter, easier to access piece, but adding a couple of, adding low income veteran status, that's not going to make this 3 pages long. So if you have a couple that you want to add, we can do that here, and then we can be keeping a list to make sure you cover the others in whatever comes next. So if there
so that sounds like you're answering my question, that there is a way to put a more expanded list somewhere else that without obscuring what our point was in the original list, was to make it readable and to let people know that if they have a problem, they have a place to look for the details. And secondly, and I'm not in favor of adding minimum wage. That is a whole different ball of wax when you're talking about, are we hiring what level, what ages? Are we ever going to make jobs again for our kids, for example? Of course, I call kids kind of older adults sometimes. I mean, older kids, college kids, etc. So I see that as a completely different topic than this, which I've taken other kinds of tests and licenses myself that have all these other words we've talked about, which seem to be normal in this kind of process. So thank you.
I want to remind the board that this is only item A. We have B, C, D, and G, all the way to F. So just be mindful, we want to finish on time. With that being said, I had two other directors looking to ask questions, Director McFarland and then Director Tinkle.
Thank you. Having said that, well, just for clarification, I'd like to go ahead and acquiesce because in principle, I agree with both Supervisor Hubbard and Director Stepper from the perspective of from a global statement, it's better if we can end up keeping it simple, as long as we've got it qualified on somewhere else. And so that qualified and quantified someplace else.
It looks like we can do that in our website. So I think we can address that concern from the board. And I'll suggest we do that when we make the motion, whoever makes the motion.
Well, I'd try to make the motion if I could figure out how to state it. So I'm going to pass.
All right. So I'm going to move to Director Tingle.
I just have a brief comment. When we were initially going over this, at first it caused me to pause when it says non-discrimination in most areas of public life, and that most areas of public life kind of put up a red flag with that. Okay, not most, but there's some that we're going to discriminate in. So the answer to that is the way that we're headed, I believe, and having a list someplace that might be a good for a more extensive list than where it's listed. But I think that would clear it up, because that most areas of public life did cause me to pause, but there's some place to go. I think that's a good way, a segue into a more extensive list if people are so interested. And end the comment, but I think we're headed in the right direction on that.
I thought so too. Thank you, Director Tingle. Can we move to public participation plan, please? I believe you're muted.
She's sharing.
There you go.
Okay. Moving on to the public participation plan. So every agency that receives federal financial assistance from the Federal Transit Administration is required to adopt a public participation plan. And the FTA has specific guidance that it provides, and that is that the agencies should be establishing processes that ensure that it solicits and considers public comments regarding its future service, project planning, environmental studies, and construction. And its processes must ensure that there's outreach to minority and/or limited English proficient communities, and that those individual communities have an opportunity to provide public comment during every public comment period. So when I first started looking at this with Valley Link, I thought I was going to be starting with a blank piece of paper, which would have been fine and would have been typical. However, you were ahead of the game because you had already adopted a sustainability policy that really guides equitable access to your project planning efforts. So you were several steps ahead of where I would have expected you to be. So that was really great. Way back in December 2018, you already had a policy in place that encourages engagement during planning and decision-making to ensure meaningful access to public decision-making and the consideration of public input. So this is providing a really wonderful place to start from. So your public participation plan, which is included in the packet, has all sorts of evidence of what you've already been doing to maximize the benefits that your protected communities have to participate in making decisions about what Valley Link is going to look like and how it's going to serve your communities. So major kudos on that. It made my job easier. And this is how it did so. It really focused on community partnerships, targeting the specific needs of your population, providing clear, understandable ways for the public to participate so that when you say we want your input, they know how to provide that input. It provides various options so that they don't have one way that they have to show up in person to speak. You really do provide them with alternatives that work for them and for how they live their daily lives. You really have opportunities for them to provide meaningful input. And if they don't speak English, you already were set up to begin providing translated written materials and interpretation for spoken communication. These are all different ways that you get the word out to people and that you then in turn get the word in from them. And this is a menu of public participation methods that we address in significant detail in the public participation plan. As you'll see, it includes in-person interactions, technologically administered interactions, written, mail, internet, planned, unplanned, all different sorts of ways to interact with people. And it's not limited. This is not an all-inclusive menu. It's just a menu of those things that we already know you're going to be doing, because for many of them, if not all of them, we've already been doing them. So with that, if you take a look at the written materials that are in the packet, you'll see pictures, photographs from events that Valley Link has already had. You'll see evidence of where some of those events have provided language services, not only because your executive director speaks the language that's most often spoken by your non-English speaking population, which is Spanish, but there are a lot of really great examples that you've already got in place that makes your public participation plan reflect who you are in addition to who you will be. And that's really a testament to who you are. So it just, yeah, this was a really nice public participation plan to work with. So if you are comfortable with it, you're already doing it. You're already living this plan. So if there's anything you need to talk about or add, we certainly can, but it's just, it's really an expression of who you already are.
So this report details, you know, some of the extensive outreach that we have done in the last 3 years to date. In particular, some of the many pop-up meetings that we custom fit to each community that we were doing outreach. And it looks like that this is providing assurance that we will continue having that source of level of public engagement pursuing our project development today. Is that right? Yeah. Looks like additional outreach strategies are just fitting with what we are already been doing, and which is great. We've been doing a good job, sounds like it. So is any questions from any of the directors? Or we can move to item C. All right, let's move to item C.
All right, item C is one that is sometimes really hard to do. But in this particular case, again, we are in a chicken and egg sort of situation. So the limited English proficient population is deemed to have been included in Title VI by reference to national origin. So as again, Title VI prohibits discrimination on race, color, and national origin. And that is then moved into limited English proficiency under national origin. So we need to have a language assistance plan or language access plan or LEP plan. You hear all those different terms, they all mean the same thing, that addresses who our limited English proficient communities are, where they are, and how we will ensure that they have access to our services and an ability to interact with us in decision making. So there are a number of different resources that we look to in developing our language assistance plan. Title VI, there's a Title VI circular. That Title VI circular cites to several executive orders, including the one that's on your screen here, There are also LEP guidance issued for each federal department. So the Department of Transportation has an LEP guidance that we use to ensure that our LEP plan, our language access plan, is sufficient. And so that's what we've done. Under Executive Order 13166, we need to ensure that there's not different treatment for people depending on their ability to communicate in English, and that we identify proactively how we will provide language assistance, how we will ensure that our staff knows what to do when encountered with somebody who speaks a different language than the person interfacing with them, and that we have mechanisms in place to guide their communication. So under the guidance, we do what's called an LEP 4-factor analysis, and that's what you'll see in the materials in the agenda packet. The first step is to identify the number or proportion of individuals in the service area who are likely to come across ValleyLink in their day-to-day lives. So in our case, we don't provide a service that we could, for example, put out a survey and say, what language do you speak? So what we have to do is really focus just on our service area population. And so we get information from the Census Bureau, and in particular from the American Community Survey, in order to determine what are our LEP languages and where are they in our service area. As a second step, we look at the frequency with which individuals with limited English proficiency engage with the authority. And then we look at how important the program is to their day-to-day life. So at this point, the level of importance in day-to-day life is quite a lot lower than it will be when you're providing service. Once you are providing service, you become essential to helping people get to work, to the doctor, to the grocery store, to church, to their family. At this point, you're a planning phase. So the level of importance isn't quite there yet, but that doesn't mean we don't have an LEP plan. And then the last step is to figure out what resources we have available to help people. Because we do have a strong connection to LAFTA, we essentially have for ValleyLink all of the same types of assistance available that LAFTA does. So in that first phase of the analysis, factor 1, we've done the analysis and determined that you have 6 languages that are spoken by people who speak English less than very well in your service area. And the people who speak those languages and also speak English less than very well are either 1,000 people or 5% of your population. So the number 1, I'm sure you will not be shocked to hear, is Spanish. I have yet to come across an agency in California that has a number 1 language that is not Spanish. And indeed, it is more than 7 times higher than number 2, which is Chinese. And that is a combination of Mandarin and Cantonese because that is how the Census Bureau does it. Next is Tagalog or Filipino, and Vietnamese is a distant 1, 2, 3, 4th, followed by Korean and Arabic. So the reason I mentioned those levels, 1,000 people or 5% of our population, is that's the threshold that we use for something called the safe harbor. And that is used for all LEP analyses. And what that does is it says if we are ever challenged as whether or not we provide sufficient translated written materials, if we translate our vital documents into these 6 languages, we are presumed to meet our written translation obligations. If somebody asks for something in another language, we do have an obligation to translate the materials, but we don't need to proactively translate into languages other than these 6. So for purposes of ValleyLink, you don't have maps and fares that people need to use to determine how to ride. So we don't have ValleyLink's vital language documents like we do for a bus service or a train service that's already in operation. At this point, your vital documents will be your Title VI non-discrimination notice, your complaint form, and your information on how to file complaints. For purposes of doing outreach, it would behoove you to do as much in Spanish as you possibly can. And then what we'll recommend, just in terms of implementing your language assistance plan, is to come up with this little block of languages that says essentially, if you need translation or interpretation, call this number, and we'll make sure that that's done in all 6 of these languages so that you always have access to your safe harbor language folks. So what we've done, again, we've identified the people who need language support. We talk about what our language assistance measures are, such as using a language line, which is a telephone relay service that pretty much every public agency around us uses. How we will train staff to engage language assistance, providing notice to our limited English proficient communities as to how to get language assistance. And then we'll be monitoring and updating our language assistance program. We need to do that as new census data comes out, as new information comes out from our surveys, etc. One thing you've already done and will continue to do is when you do surveys, you will do them naturally in Spanish, but then we'll also make translations available as needed. And all of the survey companies around here that work with our transit providers know how to do that. So that's the end of the discussion of the language assistance plan. I'm happy to take any questions, but I feel like it's somewhat self-explanatory. I'm happy to take your questions or your input.
I want to congratulate staff for all this important piece of work and to finish this line item. So thank you. It looks like there are a couple hints out there. So I'll go first with Director Kick and then Vice Chair Hernandez.
I may have missed it. Does this say anything about ASL or captioning services on our public outreach meetings?
It doesn't. That's not considered limited English proficient. That would be something that you would need to do under the various non-discrimination rules for ADA. And there are California state laws. So for limited English proficiency, it's called the Dilatory Bilingual Services Act. With the ADA, we also have the California Disabled Persons Act. And the UNRRA Act is the non-discrimination language that encompasses all of this under California state law. We are not required to have ASL translation. However, we are required to offer it where needed to have interpreters who can do ASL. So if somebody requests it, just like if they request translation in another language, we will provide it regardless of the fact that it's not in our LEP plan.
Okay, I have just been learning that we actually have a very large deaf community in the Tri-Valley. And so, and one of the things is now Zoom will provide free captioning services on all of our live meetings. So if that's something, you know, this might not be the appropriate place for that, but if that's something we could look into as we're moving forward with outreach, especially since the technology is there, there's kind of not an excuse not to do it at this point. So if that could be something we look into, I understand if this is not the correct time to do that, but just a thought.
Good idea. We will look into that.
One of our colleagues just this week indicated to us that they attended their first meeting where the closed captioning was on, and it was remarkably good. So we were very excited to hear that and are eager to figure out if we can start rolling that out with all of our clients.
Excellent. Yeah. Vice Chair Hernandez.
So just a quick question, and you may have already clarified this, but just so that I can make note of it, have you created any essential materials that are being provided in Spanish, since Spanish is the highest speaking language that, you know, your percentages that you were showing earlier?
So Marianne, I know you had a couple of items that you've already been translating. Do you want to touch on that?
We do. We've always included the fact sheet in Spanish. Hold on a moment. We've included the fact sheet in Spanish. We've had our survey work in English and Spanish and posted notices. And in addition, there is a translation service on our website now. So we've done that. And can I just make a remark while I have the floor, Chair Vargas? I just wanted to say that it was really a wonderful experience working on this with Shayna, like with staff, very meaningful to us and to others to work through this and to get a fuller understanding of the needs of the community, since it's such a key goal for our project to be responsive to the communities. And I wanted to acknowledge and thank Chris Cole, who's the lead on our project management team, who dug in with the data along with, and did some incredible mapping that's in the report, along with Kelsey Ballesteros, who's a sub to Chris Cole. So just had to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Director Tingle.
Yes, is chat still disabled? I got a message that for language assistance, how come Hindi or Punjabi is not on the list?
So the list is based on the information that we get out of the American Communities Survey. So that's really the only source we have of current information. And we just take the numbers that show up in that list, and those are the ones that hit the threshold. If you look at the full survey that's in, let's see. I'm going to give you a page number, if you don't mind.
And our chat is still disabled.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you look at, let's see. Page 2 of the LAP, you'll see the information that came straight out of a search that we did in American Community Survey. And you'll see that the top 6 languages we highlighted in a sort of medium light blue. And then all of the ones that are just in white were the languages listed in the ACS, the American Community Survey results, that did not hit the safe harbor threshold. So you'll see there are some not very specific bunchings of language. So for example, other Indo-European, German and other West Germanic, they do these sort of big bunches in the data. And unfortunately, this is the data that the federal government gives us.
Yeah.
To the extent that there's room for improved data gathering, we would be happy to make use of that data. But even when you combine some of those languages, the thresholds are not as high. But other Indo-European, for example, that's a pretty significant population at almost 45,000 in our service area, but we don't have a way to break that out and know what languages specifically are intended to be covered there.
Very
good. It's a data problem.
Thank you so much. It looks like I will entertain a motion.
Well, so for our next item, which is D.
Oh, I thought that we were already done. I'm so sorry.
We are so close.
All righty, let's do it.
The last step is to take one action that will adopt the equity statement and both of those plans, as well as the full Title VI program. And the full Title VI program includes the Title VI notice or assurances. Will include that language assistance plan and will enable us to finalize the Title VI program and submit it to the FTA. So one thing that we will do is, if you read through the resolution, you'll see there are some elements that need to be translated into Spanish. but we didn't want to translate them, come here, have you change them, and then have to translate them again. So what we'll do now is we'll take them, get them translated, put them into the plan, and we'll compile the whole program and have it ready to go to the FTA. So that is our request right now. These are all the elements that we've just talked about. In the future, you'll be asked to update additional elements. But for now, we're just asking for authority to complete and insert the identified translations, to incorporate the public participation plan and the language assistance plan, to set up the proper mechanisms to actually implement your plans and programs, and to submit this to the FTA along with evidence that you've talked about it and adopted it. And if the FTA requests any changes, we'd like to retain the ability to make some adjustments to meet their needs. So if they say, oh, we want you to, change the wording on this one line here, we need to be able to do that without bothering to come back to you and get your input on a small change. If it's anything significant, we would absolutely want to come back to you.
I'll move staff recommendation with the caveat that we focus on having a substantive list on our website about the equity statement, but that we'll move all this and do that other stuff at another time.
I'll second it.
Moved by Director Kick and second by Director Kathy Nurgeon. So roll call, please. Oh, I'm
Question?
sorry, Karen.
Director Stepper. Just a quick question. So I understand we're going forward with Shayna's recommendations throughout here. We're not adding more things to the list. We will do so in the future if we need to on our website, or are we already adopting some changes to that list? Because the only one I didn't want to see there was minimum wage, because I think that's a very different category of personnel. So what's the answer?
Motion.
Pardon?
There were no changes in the motion, just the.
Then I'm fine, Michael. Thank you very much. And thank you, Brittany, for stating it so well.
Director Tingle.
I just have a question for clarification. If we find that later, the community in which we serve, that there's a need for an additional translation, we'll look at it at that time? Absolutely. Is that what you're also saying?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
This plan will be
changes all the time.
Right. This plan will need to be adopted at least every 3 years. You can always do more than what's in your plan. No one will tell you that you're limited by your plan.
Good. Is that okay, Director Tingle?
Yes, that answers it. If we find that we do need to change something, that flexibility is there. Thank you.
Absolutely. We get to a roll call if there's no. Oh. Yes, absolutely. Hi, Paul.
Yes, just speaking on Director Stepper, what she said. Are we saying now that this agency will never pick up that idea of participating in the minimum wage when it is approved or whatever it was done with it? Yeah, I mean that's like.
No, I did not say that.
Okay, well, what is your objection?
I said that that's not something that's encompassed in all of these Title VI discrimination, and that's what we're doing right now, and we need to get this ready to go. I bet if you want to talk about wages and salary and all the divisions that go into salary, that's something that I'm sure we're going to discuss in the future.
But that was not the intention. The intention was what is going to be on our display and what is going to be directed to the people. There's nothing wrong in the public agency supporting the minimum wage as stipulated by the federal government. I don't think it's out of the question, really. I'm not specifying stepping of salaries or anything. It's just that it's a public agency and it needs to be in a position to comply with what the federal government approved minimum wages says. It should be there somewhere.
So I think I misunderstood what you intended earlier. The only thing of that ilk that I've ever seen addressed in Title VI programs is including low income status as a basis of a non-discrimination statement. And that is certainly something that I've seen, but addressing the pay of your employees would definitely be outside of sort of the purview of what this plan is about. That would be sort of a totally separate subject. This is not about your employees. This is about providing the public with the ability to access the services that you provide. So I hope that clarifies. And I just noticed my background is backwards. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, and we're certainly going to comply with all minimum wage laws. And we have language in our contracts that require our contractors to also comply with all laws. So I think we, in terms of the operations of the agency, as we get going, I think we are going to address those issues and make sure, that we're compliant and our contractors are compliant. This is more in providing really our transit service. Are we, making a clear statement that we're not going to discriminate against anyone. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure the minimum wage isn't really a question in that regard. But it's certainly something we're going to make sure that we uphold. And, it's, again, compliance with those laws is a condition of all of our contracts.
Right.
So moved.
Okay. Any other
We
questions?
do a roll call, please.
Okay. Akinjo,
Yes, ma'am.
Hobart,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Kick,
Yes.
King Tingle,
Yes.
McPartland,
Aye.
Neeram,
Aye.
Rickman,
Yes.
Stepper,
Yes.
Vargas,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Zuber,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving to item number 9.
Hi, Chair Vargas. It's David Kotrowski again. I will be brief. This is just, as I mentioned in the earlier part of the agenda, this is an overview of informational items as well as what's going to be coming up at your next board meeting on April 14th for action. So I will turn it over to Catherine Groves, one of our attorneys from Mr. Conran's team.
Thank
Catherine?
you, David. All right, so I do have 2 screens, so I'm going to try and share this. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Okay.
There we go. I think it's up.
You ready?
Yeah, 1 second.
There you go.
Sorry. No, I know. Sorry, I'm trying to get the presenters review up. All right, that's not working. So let me switch over. I'll just do it this way. All right, can you see it?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so this, as David mentioned, and I think you've heard throughout, there's a bit of a chicken and egg issue generally. So these are the chickens or the eggs, I would say, depending on how you want to think about it. So there are numerous FTA requirements, legal as well as financial and technical requirements that we need to comply with. And we've we've tried to bring forward the ones that we can comply with now by adopting various policies. And we wanted to preview some for you that we're going to be bringing next month, and then ones that either will need to come before you again in the future once a certain threshold is hit, number of employees, or we reach the operations phase, and other ones that come into play, assuming that the rail option is selected and also at the operations stage. So to start off, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. So the FTA requires grantees to establish a DBE program. And I'm going to give you a really high-level overview today because we're going to be bringing back the draft plan to the board next month. And we'll go into a lot more detail at that point, but we just wanted to give you a brief overview right now. The general idea is that a DBE is a for-profit small business that meets two prongs. So the first is an ownership prong, and the second is a management prong. So to be a DBE, you have to be a for-profit small business that's at least 51% owned by one or more individuals who are both socially and economically disadvantaged. And the business, the management and daily business operations have to be controlled by one or more of the socially and economically disadvantaged individuals who own it. The DBE program that we're going to be bringing to you next month is drafted. We are in the process of drafting it to achieve these objectives. In general, what we're trying to do is ensure that there is non-discrimination in the award and administration of FTA funded contracts. The goal is to create a level playing field on which DBEs can compete for those FTA contracts. And the way you do that is through a variety of different outreach efforts, as well as helping to remove barriers for DBE participation, and making sure, some contracts will have DBE specific goals. And it's really a comprehensive effort to try and make sure that you can get DBEs involved. So next month, we're going to be bringing, as I mentioned, that proposed DBE program to you for consideration. As with the Title VI program and a lot of the other programs that we've touched upon, the needs of the agency will change as we move into subsequent phases of this project. So we will be coming back to you in the future once we move into operational stages of things. And as with the Title VI program, any significant changes to the program, these have to be adopted by the board and then also approved by the FTA. Are there any questions before I move on to the next item? I can't actually see you guys, so let me know if there are any
comments or questions.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so then now we're moving into one of the items that is not ripe yet, but may be in the future, Equal Employment Opportunity Program, the EEO program. So this really focuses on making sure that Valley Link is complying with not discriminating when hiring, and that its consultants are also not discriminating. And so we've touched upon how in all of our contracts, we have the EEO and non-discrimination language is very robust. So we already have that and ensure that the consultants are complying with that. In addition to that, once Valley Link starts hiring employees, it must also comply with any employment discrimination statutes and regulations. There are some layered requirements that apply if and when Valley Link gets more employees. So for instance, once Valley Link gets 50 employees to 99, the agency will need to adopt a EEO policy, a formal policy, have an officer, really start assessing the employment practices and making sure that you're satisfying ongoing monitoring and reporting requirements. And then in addition, there are more requirements once you move on beyond the 100 employee threshold. I'll keep going. And then finally, These are requirements that will apply once you get into the operations stage. And we wanted to preview them for you now because they will require a significant amount of resources to implement. And the TAM plan and the safety plan in particular will come back before you probably a few years from now. Once you get to the operations stage, the agency is required to develop and adopt a asset management plan and a safety plan. And then the final two that I'll touch upon are in the event that the rail alternative is selected. And again, once we get to the operations stage, the agency is going to need to develop and implement a cybersecurity policy and also more extensive rail safety training and oversight requirements. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody has any questions? All right, well, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
We're not doing item 10. That's been pulled out of the agenda, right, Michael?
Correct.
Okay, so we're moving to item number 11. Director's discussion, comments, questions on agendas requests? None? Oh, Director Hudson.
Yeah, make sure I'm not muted. I'm not going to miss any opportunity to do this. I forgot who I told the last time, but I think there's an opportunity. Yeah, probably the opportunity to do something that you're not going to see again for at least 10 years, if not 15, and that's the APTA conference in Anaheim. I pretty much nailed down the date. I believe it's the 1st through the 3rd, which surprised me, Wednesday through Friday. I don't even think they've set out what the government rates will be, but I checked the Marriott there and found out at $199 a night. I'm not waiting for them to find out it costs more. It was $199 and I think $215. But if you ever want to see everything that's available, you're probably going to have 300 to 400,000 square feet of anything to do with transit, period. I remember seeing the high-speed rail in the one that they had, I don't know, where Houston or San Antonio or one of these things. So I would strongly get with your cities, each one of them. There's no way you shouldn't be there. And we're going to actually send planning commissioners and public works people to it because with these Zoom things, it's not the same as the touchy-feely stuff. So I'm giving you the heads up on it. Please take a look at it. Let's send a strong contingency to this because many times you have many of the people from Washington, D.C. and other places that do go to these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's my comments.
So Dave, that's late August, early September from what I see.
Yeah, I got 31st, 1st, 2nd, and then leave on the 3rd. I forget that I'm on one of these committees. I don't know when they meet, but I mean, you're not, this goes around the country. It's not coming back here with the 3-year event. It's every 3 years you have the big one.
Can you share the conference name with the rest of us? Maybe Michael, can you send us a little information?
APTA. Uh-oh.
Michael, we'll get him some information on that.
Great.
Yeah.
That's the American Public Transportation Association.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because most of us to travel needs to get authorization from their council members or their, approval from the city manager's office. So just to make things a little easier to get that information to those that may want to attend. I want to address some of the earlier comments. I don't want to disregard the comments from the caller earlier. You guys, you know that I'm a total advocate for the TOD, for Valley Link. I take no shame on saying I am a proponent of a transit-oriented development, even if a city has no growth or slow growth. It's my duty and my job as a chairman to advocate of all aspects and policies of the TOD. So with that said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And to clarify, I do own my own business. I'm not a developer. I am own a consulting company. That's how I earn my living. And I have done it for a long time. I do development consulting, entitlement permitting, things like that for landowners. And I want to make sure that all of you know, I don't have any transit-oriented developments that I work on, nor I have development near a transit station or near any projected stations within a half mile of Valley Link. And if I did have any conflict, I will make sure to reach out not only to my city manager, but to the attorneys as well. So I want to make sure that all you know that I am very passionate and committed to see this project to fruition, and I will do anything that I can to serve with the utmost integrity to this board. Thank you for allowing me to make those comments. And Director Hernandez, Vice Chair Hernandez.
Just a quick comment. I know we're all ready to wrap up and everything, but I just want to say thank you so much. This was such a productive meeting, and I'm glad that staff is working hard to move everything forward, and it's getting exciting. So I'm glad that we have everybody, that's new on board and getting a rundown. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Supervisor Harper, I know that you had your hand up over there for a minute. You were there. No? All right. Director Akincho.
I'm okay, thanks. I'm sorry, it took me a while to get to the mute button. I don't need anything. I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't I think our CEO Michael Tree or something, did you promise a year ago that you're going to send the rail something to our offices? Mr. Tree? I can't hear you.
I don't understand.
Oh, Michael doesn't have a mic working.
Oh.
So he cannot answer you, Paul. He will get back to you though.
I think that was deliberate though. That was deliberately done. It's okay.
Well, with that being said, next meeting date is April 14th, right before taxes at 2:00. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn to April the 14th at 2 p.m.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Director Tingle, second by Director McFarland. Roll call, please.
I don't believe we need a roll call for adjourn.
Without objection, we can have the meeting adjourned.
Perfect. So it is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.